Triple Zeros. I'm your host, Josh Buckhalter. Follow me on Twitter at JoshyBuck. Hit up the Facebook page, Clocker Sports. Hit up the website, clockersports.com, and the email address is clockersports@gmail.com. Man, getting right into it. The NBA is so close to returning. We're so close. Sports has been shut down since March, and whoo boy, it's been rough. But luckily, the NBA has set up their return to play. We know that the NHL has gotten their plan going, and MLB sounds like they have something in the works. NFL is just chugging along. We're not even worried about them. NFL is saying that they might not have any fans. They're not worried about training camps, but they're talking about their games are just going to roll along as if nothing's even a problem. So we're not even going to worry about them so far in terms of getting back to action. But the NBA actually has a plan in place. They are setting dates. I'm not sure if it's set in stone. I know that they were talking about the last game should be around, the final starting around September 23rd and ending around October 2nd. They're not wasting any time. They are getting teams at the end of this month. They are going to Orlando. They're going to have a 2-week training camp period. And then at the end of July, they're going to begin a season, 8 games, and then a play-in tournament for the final spot. And listen, it's going to be wild. And let's just look at some of the teams that are still alive now. Obviously, you have some of the regular playoff field is going to be in there. That's not a surprise. But the extra teams, right? The play-in field is what's surprising me. You have the Pelicans, you have the Blazers, you have the Kings, and you have the Spurs, and you have the Suns coming out of the West. Now, I need to mention that these are teams that were within, I believe, 6 games of the 8th seed. So you got a lot more teams in the West than you do in the East, because obviously the East at a certain point was just a cliff and teams fell off, such as my Chicago Bulls, and we'll talk about them in a minute. But this playoff field is really interesting, especially with all those West Coast teams. All of those play-in field teams are dangerous. The Pelicans are a very young team, explosive. Zion Williamson and Brandon Ingram there with Lonzo Ball and Drew Holiday. That team can give anybody fits. The Sacramento Kings are a wild card. I'm not sure if they have enough. They're still kind of a bunch of parts more than they are a good fit for a team. Same with the Phoenix Suns. They have Devin Booker and not really much else. Now, they could get hot and give a team up some problems, but I don't see them really being a threat to anybody. You have the Spurs. Come on, Pop. Who knows what Pop will pull off? I don't see it, but it's popping. This is probably the year they'll mess around and win a championship, because they just do. They got all this rest now. Those old guys get fresh legs and they get a chance to come back. You heard Thaddeus Young was quoted as saying that he feels like this added a couple seasons to his career because he got to spend so much time off. Or he will, coming back next season. The Portland Trail Blazers, last year's Western Conference Finals losing team, but this year struggling. They were on the outside looking into the playoffs, so they'll be trying to all go against the Memphis Grizzlies for that last spot, depending on how things work out with the final stretch of the season. Now, they're saying that they're working on seeding with winning percentage and all this kind of stuff, and they're doing a whole bunch of funky math, but the expansion of the playoff field is the part that I want to focus on, because this gives a lot of these teams, like I said, those Western Conference teams are really a threat. The Eastern Conference team, you got the Washington Wizards. I'm not looking forward. I don't think the Wizards are going to do right. That's not doing anything. I'm not worried about them. I know John Wall's talking about he's healthy and he's ready to go, but I just don't see the Wizards, even with him and Bradley Beal healthy, competing with anybody, let alone making much noise in going to the finals. I just don't see that happening. So focusing on those Western Conference teams. If you've been following, the Blazers are not a team that I've been high on. I was surprised that they made it where they were last year. I thought that last year was the aberration, and the rest of this is what we've come to expect from them. Not that they're not talented, but they're not built properly, in my opinion. Now, you can argue with that, but they're on the outside looking in. The Pelicans are the team that I think have the best chance to challenge Memphis for that final spot, and if they get it, look out, because you're going to have a team that's going to be able to challenge the Los Angeles Lakers, and we know what that history is with those players, with Ingram and Ball, Josh Hart especially, very vocal about his feelings on that whole organization there. So those are things that you kind of have to be on the lookout for when you are trying to dissect who is going to be in it. Now, again, Memphis is there. And let's not write them off. Ja Morant is way ahead, I think, of where most people figured he would be at this point in his career. Jaren Jackson, the versatile big man. You still got Jonas Valanciunas down there. And then Dillon Brooks. Dillon Brooks is a player out of Oregon who a lot of the so-called experts said would not stick around. He could shoot. Everybody knew he could shoot, but they thought the shot would be too slow. He wasn't long enough to be anything more than a spot-up shooter. And again, he needed that space because he didn't have a quick release. Well, all he's done is turn himself into a pretty solid perimeter defender, still a knockdown shooter, and one of the better players on that team, surprisingly enough. So, kudos to Dylan Brooks for putting on quite a show so far in your young career. But that Grizzlies team is very, very dangerous. Again, when you look at this restart, to me, I tried to figure who I thought would have the bigger advantage, the older teams versus the younger teams. And I really, I think that the losers in all this really are just those mid-tier teams, those teams that don't really have an identity. So I think what's going to happen here is energy and star power, right? Your ISO guys are going to be what's going to come out and kind of carry you in the beginning of it. So that means teams that rely on chemistry and ball movement and stuff like that could really struggle. So the Denver Nuggets, the Utah Jazz, even though they kind of rely on Donovan Mitchell, Oklahoma City Thunder, as good of a team as they are, and they're good defense. And Chris Paul is probably the exception to the rule, who can get this team lined up properly and get them everything rolling for them. But like in the East, you have the Indiana Pacers, Orlando. I don't think they're going to do anything anyway, but you get what I'm saying here. The teams that kind of need that kind of chemistry to work with each other, I don't see that those teams are going to be able to sustain themselves for very long. Now, I know they get the 8 games to warm up, and maybe that's enough. They'll have the training camp period and all that kind of stuff, and they're trying to work out something, maybe do some scrimmages with some of the teams that weren't allowed. Who knows what they're going to end up doing? We'll talk about that in a second, but it's one of those situations where I just don't see those teams being able to overcome. Again, I think youth, because you're going to have that energy, bing, bing, bing. Think of how many teams we see year in and year out that kind of get off to those fast starts that fade. Those young teams that come out out of the gates, explosive and just to fade away. I can see that working in their favor in this situation because they're fresh, they're ready to go. They're kind of just always in shape, right? The older teams relying on star power. The better teams, I think, will be that's a better way to put it. Not the older teams. So Milwaukee with Giannis, I think that'll be good for them. The Lakers, LeBron is ready. I would imagine AD is ready. I haven't seen much of AD, but I'd imagine AD is ready. Yeah, I just don't. I think it'll be star power and young legs. So those chemistry teams, those better teams and individuals, or what is it, greater than some of those their parts groups, I think are going to suffer the most when it all comes back. But look out again, like I said, for those Western teams. Portland, but New Orleans, that's the one to keep an eye on because Zion, I can see Zion making some noise with that team and them giving him a couple calls because the NBA kind of might want to drum up some extra money, And don't say that they don't because they've already added some teams to the playoff field. They could have just went to their season 70 and then played it out regular, but no, they went and did some extra funky stuff. Why? For money. It's money, money, money. Don't ever say it's not. Don't ever think it's not. So, yeah, that's the only thing that I think is going to be an issue here for the older teams is if they catch, like I said, Lakers going to face the Grizzlies first round. I don't think the Lakers will lose that series, but boy, don't let the Grizzlies come out and pull the stunner of the centuries. Now, whoever wins is going to have the asterisk by their title because it's just going to be really, it's kind of hard to attribute this as anything other than a one-off outlier type of year. But yeah, man, that'd be wild, right? Memphis and New Orleans, just the two young teams out there in the West are the ones to keep an eye on. In the East, Milwaukee or bust, honestly. I was high on the Sixers early on in the year. That's gone. That's been gone for quite a while, but it's definitely gone now. Brooklyn, if KD says he's not coming back, Kyrie's not coming back to play, so there's no reason to even think that Brooklyn's going to make any kind of noise either. Toronto's the one that's been surprising me and shutting me up all season. I'd be more than happy to admit that I'd be wrong about them. And then Boston. We'll see what Boston does. Boston's interesting because I've never been high on them. I kind of feel like they're really good, and that's about it. They lack great. I think Tatum's really good. I don't know if he's great yet, right? He's really, really good though. So like he's close. He's close, and this postseason will probably be where he gets his chance to finally put on the show to show everybody that I'm sure I'm late to the party on it, but I think he's really good, maybe not great yet. Toronto, same thing with Pascal. Is Pascal really good or is he great? We'll find out. So yeah, those are just a couple of things that I'm keeping an eye on when they finally do get this weird tournament style play-in and postseason thing finally going. So that's something to keep a lookout for there. Switching real quick, coming a little bit local with the Chicago Bulls. New Vice President of Basketball Operations, Arturas Karnisovas, was talking about a couple of the players and really talking about, before we talk about the players, talking about Jim Boylen. And the word kind of got out of why the Bulls haven't just gone ahead and cut ties with the man. There's no one that believes that he's going to stick around. But the rumor is that they are wary of their image in the public eye of how they treated their coaches in the past. And that's a very, very valid concern. However, I have to say that if you're holding on to a coach who most people would agree is not really that good, just to save your image, that kind of just makes you look like you're pandering. No, listen, in many different subjects, nobody likes to be pandered to. That's not a very good look either. I think that with this new regime, they don't really need to saddle themselves with the burdens of the past administration, right? You kind of need to let those things go and kind of forge your own path. You've already done so with the GM hire. They've brought you in Karnisovas anyway, so that was a completely new direction for them as it is. There's no reason to hold on to Boylen simply to try to prove that, hey, look, we treat our coaches better now. That's not really, no. Everybody knows that he's, let me not say it that way. There's a large part of the NBA world that doesn't think that he's a good coach. And even if he is, the fit probably isn't here in Chicago. Word is that AK and Mark Eversley both have decided that it's that time, and they're just waiting. If you decided it's that time and you're just waiting, that's even worse. Now, fans had to deal with Boylen going around saying he has no reason to believe that he won't be back. Then you had also before and after, though, you had the talks of the Reinsdorfs still liking Boylen, having all the faith in him, and everybody's like, well, you gotta, that's what they have to say, he's still there. But the longer it takes, I know the more nervous. I know I get nervous. I'm like, man, look, they better not start 20. They better not start next season with this man as the head coach. I'm sure there's some players who feel the same way. But yeah, I just don't think that it's beneficial to keep him on to try to disprove that you don't treat coaches bad if you're keeping a bad coach. And a little bit of dirty pool. Supposedly Rick Carlisle, the head coach for the Dallas Mavericks, is also the head coach is also the president of the Coaches Association, and he has been telling coaches to stay away from the Chicago Bulls because of how they treat the coaches. Now, I would hope that he knows that Paxson is gone, so there's nobody being grabbed by their tie and stuff like that. So Gar Forman is gone, so he's not out here to do his best Jerry Krause impersonation. So hopefully it changes and things like that. Hopefully that's old tea. But man, it's definitely disconcerting to hear that there are reps who are actively trying to keep players away from your team, because I mean, honestly, when you look at it, there's really not much that I would blame them for in that, because it's not been good. Right? They haven't done things well. You fired Tibbs. Now Tibbs was grinding guys to the ground and wasn't willing to work with the front office either, so I'll grant them that. But it still wasn't a good look to have him walk out and in the midst of what all that happened. Now, the team fell apart, injuries again, partly due to him. All that was bad, but it was rough, man. Now, talking about the players, Karnisovas they were speaking highly of Wendell Carter, and they've been doing this all pretty much since they've gotten here. Really trying to figure out what Wendell Carter is as a player, because we were told he was a complete package, and we've seen him become a guy who's really just there to get in the way and goes grab some rebounds. He doesn't really defend the basket well. He's not a big guy, so he's going to get out muscled a lot of times. And he wants to play the four. He's been vocal about that. Now, here's the issue that I have. It's twofold, really. For one, I need to see a better outside shot before I'm trying Wendell at the four with any type of consistency. That's just me. I'm pretty sure that there are coaches who probably feel the same way, which is why we didn't see him do it. But I think that the other part about it that you got to wonder is, what does that leave Lowry if you do want to move Wendell to the four just to make things a little bit more cohesive? Are they splitting time now? Because somebody's value is taking a hit at that point. Lowry hasn't shown you anything consistently with regards to physicality in terms of getting rebounds, defending the basket, and anything like that. Like, he's not a rim protector. So you got two guys who are not really a rim protector, and then you got Daniel Gafford, the rookie, who looked good in that role. So now the question is, do you elevate him, push Carter to the fore, and create yourself all types of questions? And you could just really have a really good 3-man big rotation there. But man, it just feels like you're wasting talent. You're probably costing yourself a valuable trade chip if you don't move one of those guys. And then the question becomes, who do you move? You would probably get the most back for Lowry, even though his value is hit now. He's got the highest ceiling out of all those 3 guys. I'm assuming you're keeping Gafford, so Wendell will be the man now. But at the 4, he's like Al Horford. He wants to play the 4, but he's a 5 in today's game. But he's just not built yet to play the 5. He still has to grow into the 5 role, despite his will. Now, again, we'll see what he can do next year when he comes back. Maybe he's expanded his game to the point where he's comfortable taking that midi. Maybe the new coaching staff, whoever that may be. Rumors has it that it'll be Ime Udoka, assistant from the 76ers. We'll see another of the Pop coaching tree. We'll see if that plays out. There's still talks that it could be Adrian Griffin as well. Kenny Atkins seems to be out, and again, that was my top choice. But the cases have been made. I have been nayed to oblivion on this one, where it's just kind of obvious that most people seem to feel like his chances are up and it's time for somebody else to get it. And I'm cool with either one of the Griffin or Udoka. I'm not familiar with Udoka as much as I am with Griffin. And again, if we have to pick, I would probably go with Udoka. And if you're going to go with Udoka, I think then you kind of get yourself ready, Bulls fans, for a whole nother rebuild, because I think that they're further away than people want to really admit. I'm not sure that this team really fits together. You're going to lose Otto next year. I'm not sure if there's a team that's going to be out there trying to take on that hefty contract. Zach LaVine is going to be a piece that I think a team might want to try and come sniff around if the Bulls are really out there flailing around come the All-Star break. So we'll have to see and keep eyes on that. But just know that they are high on the front court, and we know what Kobe White can do. I'm not sure what people think of his ceiling yet. They're still kind of caught between a spark plug off the bench and point guard of the future. I'm not sure I see that second one. But yeah, man, a lot of things are happening without anything really happening yet in the NBA. So hopefully we get some actual games going on soon, because I'm getting bored. I'm about as bored as I could possibly be. The MJ documentary is over, and I'm really just not. There's no substitute for live game action, so I'm really excited for this to all happen. Now, people can't leave the bubble. They have told James Harden. No, they haven't told James Harden. I'm just playing. But it was a joke going around on Twitter that Harden's going to have to get tagged in his sock or something, and say he doesn't walk off because they have told players that they do not want them to leave the bubble. There's all sorts of strict rules about how players are to operate. There won't be any mingling with regular park visitors and the players, and all sorts of stuff to keep things safe. And they've planned on what they would do if there's a positive testing of COVID-19 while things are going on. They will be testing on a nightly basis. Like, it's a lot of stringent rules that they're going to be, and guidelines that they're supposedly following to make sure that this thing can go off. We'll see how it happens. I'm selfishly, I'm ready for it to happen. So I'll just leave it at that, because I can't make the call any other way. We all know why it's coming back. It's coming back as a bottom line. It's not any other. It's not safety. None of that. It's coming back as a bottom line. So selfishly, I'm ready. Let's go. Give me the content. Give me the time filler. All that stuff. So, yeah. Gonna take a quick break, and when I come back, I'm gonna switch gears, talk about the NFL. Again, I told you they're rolling along, man. But that doesn't mean there's not stuff to talk about. Really, it's a lot of Bears news, and I know you probably got surprised, because I usually touch on the home teams a little lightly, but I gotta dig into them this time. So, triple zeros, you know what it is, man. Be right back. Don't go anywhere. Triple zeros. on triple zeros and switching gears to the NFL. Again, I'm your host, Josh Buckhalter. Follow me on Twitter, JoshyBuck. Facebook page, Clocker Sports website, clockersports.com. Email address, clockersports@gmail.com. Okay, so ESPN conducted a redraft of the NFL. They only did 4 rounds, and they had some pretty basic rules that they had to pick a quarterback, one non-offensive player, one offensive player, and then I believe one other random player. But that's not important here. What I want to focus on, and the only thing that really matters, is how awful the Bears draft was. Now, they did these by local reporters, and I love the guy. You know, he's a really great beat reporter. But Jeff Dickerson, man, what was this? Jimmy Garoppolo? He took Jimmy Garoppolo, 19th overall. Now, he took him above, ahead of Christian McCaffrey and some other really good players, and he came back in the second round and got Derrick Henry. Then he went with Jerry Jeudy in the third, and fourth, he went Eddie Jackson. Now, listen, I understand that you like him and you had to go get quarterback. JD actually opens up saying that he was determined to draft a quarterback. That's cool, but damn. Look, man, Jimmy Garoppolo's a guy that, again, I had to admit that he played better than I expected him to in a lot of games this year. However, he's still a guy who I believe needs a lot around him to go really well. And even in a shortened draft, I'm not going to sit here and tell you that I feel like that old Jimmy G was actually doing anything to benefit anybody, right? Or I'm not sure that he's elevating this group, especially with a rookie receiver and Jerry Jeudy out there trying to be his number one option. That's what concerns me the most about this. It's not the fact that, you you got the rest of the Bears, I'm assuming, around him, but like, oh, dude, Jimmy Garoppolo. Again, that's a hometown kid, and who knows, things might go different. If you ask him to do more, maybe he does do more. So I'm not gonna sit here and completely destroy him. I saw McCaffrey right after, and I was like, oh. It was one of those kind of cascading things where, like, disappointed, man. Just wish it would have been a little bit better. That was all that was. So one of the other things that I noticed about it, though, was the Bears draft, that is they got Eddie Jackson still in the fourth. Now, I kind of felt like there may have been an instance here where JD was being a little bit too sentimental and wasn't necessarily picking best player available. But when you get a player like Eddie Jackson, it's kind of hard to argue that you're getting both value and a player that is familiar with the team and everything like that. So that's probably the better way to look at it in that regard. But it just was one of those things again. You kind of want to see. I like Jimmy. I just don't like him enough to pick him in the first round. He went second round in the first place. I don't know what he's done that made you feel like he should go higher than that the second time around. So that again, oh man, yeah, I don't know I'm not sure exactly what JD was thinking. That one was kind of confusing to me. Now, in other news, you had Doc Rivers talking about the expectations for the quarterback competition for the Chicago Bears, Nick Foles and Mitchell Trubisky. Now, this has been a back and forth and a really popular topic between everybody, and it's really funny because what made it popular is that no one really knows what to expect because, Mitchell Trubisky is the incumbent, but Nick Foles technically has more experience in his offense and has won a Super Bowl operating at least a variation of it. So it's kind of up in the air exactly what's going to happen once things finally do get to rolling. Now, what is interesting about it is that you have all these coaches here who have worked with Foles as well. But Ryan Pace and really Matt Nagy are really invested in Mitchell Trubisky. So there's a dynamic of kind of conflicting interests in this, and I'm really interested to see how it all plays out because the Bears have made their statement that they're going to roll out with Mitch, and that's who they expect to be the guy, and it'll be a competition, but Mitch will get the first crack at it, which is what you expect from the incumbent to receive. But, man, there's a lot of support there for Nick Foles, except for offensive line. They seem to be expecting that to revert back to some kind of normalcy or more of a 2018 level than what we saw in 2019 because that was trash. But I'm still concerned that Nick Foles being a statue, if the read is off, and that's what they're counting on it not being, is him not making the wrong read or not being behind or late with the read, if that's off, then you are back at square one, right? You're worse square one. And I guess that's probably the whole point is that if they don't get it here, they're not necessarily going to get it anywhere because they're probably done in Chicago if it doesn't work out this year. Now, there have been a lot of mock drafts going on already, the way too early ones that come out right around now. And some of them have had them taking Ohio State's Justin Fields. You've seen others where they've mocked the Bears to have Trey Lance from North Dakota State. I'll say this. If they go that low, I would prefer Fields. You've also seen some Trevor Lawrence too, but I think Trevor Lawrence is probably going to be... I don't see the Bears getting one. Their defense is too good for them to get one. I honestly don't see them getting too far. I don't see them getting into the top 10 in picks. I don't think it'll be that bad regardless. And so then I see you have to get a quarterback that's falling, and that's where you see either Fields or Lance, because Fields is a guy that people seem to want to pick apart a lot, and he's going to be obviously at Ohio State, so they're gonna destroy that because of how much talent he's going to be around. And then you got Lance, who's kind of an unknown product coming out of North Dakota State, who gets the same rap that all the other small school guys. I'm still kind of skeptical on him myself. So you got to keep that in mind when thinking about this. So that means the Bears could probably have a chance at either one of those guys, honestly. And it'll be interesting, again, like I said, to see which one they end up coming to, which one they end up deciding on if it comes down to it. So keep an eye on that. Again, not much going on with the NFL and everything like that, but one of the other things that was interesting, and I guess it's the thing, and I like to save the best for last, was the NFL. Roger Goodell had to come out and make a video denouncing racism and speaking out in support of basically Black Lives Matter and talking about the kneeling and saying that it was wrong. But interestingly enough, from that apology, quote unquote, there was a very unsurprising lack of the mention of Colin Kaepernick, the man who started the kneeling and who tried to raise the awareness and was ran out of the league. Again, he opted out. This is true, but we're not going to parse that here. What I am going to parse is that they refuse to say the man's name who started the movement to get this part going, who honestly was hung out to dry by a lot of his teammates, by a lot of by the league. Like I said, they didn't I read today a tweet where a person said that they didn't know that a Green Beret told Kaepernick to kneel instead of sit, because it was being more respectful than sitting on his ass. And I thought to myself, that is the funniest thing in the world, because we are 4 years later. This is a person who probably roundly criticized him and was like, "Oh, I had no idea. When did this happen?" And it was like that was the bigger. I was stunned. So we're not at the point anymore where if you still got, this is the problem that was what was the issue with Drew Brees. It's not that he has an opinion. He's more than entitled to his opinion. That's the beauty of this. But you got to get the facts right, and you try to misinterpret it and try to throw your own narrative on it, or throw the old misdirection on there, the old 22 skidoo, and people call you out for it, because at this point in time, 4 years later, if you're still saying it, you just don't want to believe it. And so when the NFL put out that weak-ass IG statement like all these other celebrities do, Drew, and you got the backlash from the players, which in the form of a video that was the video department went behind the NFL's back and filmed with the players, right? And you had the MVP in there. Supposedly that's what swayed Goodell to come out and make the video. That's a power of the people type of moment. Now, why is that significant? Why is that so significant for the NFL? Well, with all the turmoil that they've gone through with the Kaepernick thing and everything like that, we know the NFL likes to keep a tight rein on not only the situation, the image that we see, but also, honestly, what the people who are in it are doing. And to kind of see the rebellion from staffers, from people who really aren't faces, right? You don't know these people. You might know them if you know them, but you don't actively go out and search for these people. Go out and with the players, and the players to go out and put their faces to it, I think is great. Aaron Rodgers, shout out. I never thought I'd say something like that, but I did. Only time you'll hear me say it. So yeah, NFL having a reverse course. They still didn't go all the way. You got to apologize. You got to apologize to. You got to say you apologize to Colin. You got to apologize to Colin. You have to. I don't know why you wouldn't at this point. There's no reason not to. Again, you want to go to, he brought out the socks and he had on the Shea shirt and he's apologized. So why can't the NFL return the sentiment and meet the man halfway and they can work together on something powerful? You want to talk about this real, trying to affect a real change, and if you're sincere, an olive branch and work with me. I'm not even saying give him the job back. You see how that worked? I didn't even bring that part up. That's not even my concern because he's been he's done very well as an activist. I'm not saying he shouldn't get a job. I think he should, but I mean that's not the point, right? You extend that hand and work with him on those initiatives, and you can really switch your whole image around. But we see who wants to do what when things go down like this. If they don't do it, then we know that was all on them, and they could have. And I know I'm not unique in that thought process of how they could go about it. We'll see if they end up doing it though. That's gonna do it for this episode of Triple Zeros. Follow me on Twitter at JoshyBug, Facebook page, Clocker Sports, website clockersports.com, email address clockersports@gmail.com. Check out the Writing Man, Pippen Ain't Easy. Check out the Last Word on Pro Football stuff for the Bears info, and then of course, like I said, Clocker Sports, man. And until the very next time, you already know what it is, bro. I'm gone.